one and all, and listen to tales of excitement and adventure. Tales of daring heroes, savage monsters, and bards who just couldn't keep it in their pants. Tales of friendship, nobility, drunken foolishness, and unforgettable fun. These are tales of role-playing games, fair listeners, and this is Rollin' Bones. My name is Ryan Howard, and I shall be your guide. Good evening, Boneheads, and welcome to Rollin' Bones with Ryan Howard, your RPG treasure trove. I am your host and king of the Boneheads, Ryan Howard, and this evening we are going to be reviewing a couple of zine games that came out through Kickstarter by a couple of guys who have been on the show several times. So first and foremost, we've got the Phylactery number 3 by Levi Combs, which we're going to talk about this evening. And we're also going to be talking about the first in a new product line from John Hambone McGuire of the Vintage RPG podcast, and that is Rocket to Russia, which is a prelude to a product called Point Nemo, which will be coming out at some point. And it's also the first from 321 Action, which is a new game system, basically. So we'll be talking about that. I am, of course, enjoying a margarita. I have been on quite a margarita kick recently, so I'm enjoying one of those. I am out of whiskey, so that's why I'm drinking one of those. That and I've been drinking a lot of margaritas recently because I discovered how to make them. As if, people haven't been making them forever. Like I'm the first one to come to that conclusion. But anyway, we're going to be taking a look at these games, so let's go ahead and move on over to screen share. Not a lot of Prelude tonight. We're just going to dive right in and talk about these games. So let's see. Alrighty. Cool, so here we are. Move on over here. I now have a 2-screen setup, so if you see me look over to the side, it is because I'm looking at chat. So if anyone is, looking to comment as we're going, I can see what you're saying now. It's not me kind of switching back and forth or looking down at my phone. I now have 2 monitors because of my new job. So yeah, I can look over and see what's on this side now. So that's, if you see me looking over like I am right now on camera, it's me looking at the new monitor. Or rather, the old monitor, because I'm on the new monitor. Anyway, this is the cover to Phylactery number 3. For those of you who don't know, Phylactery is a basically all systems compatible companion series put out by Planet X Games by the great and powerful Levi Combs, and it's basically just OSR and grindhouse flavored stuff that you can put into your games to give them kind of that Planet X feel. And there's all kinds of great homages and call outs to pop culture stuff here. As you can see, those of you who are comics fans, this Ed Bickford cover is one of those homages specifically to the Days of Future Past cover from the X-Men. Nice little John Byrne shout out here. This one also features some shout outs to creators who are kind of in the orbit here. Old Gator is John Larson, who I'd love to have on the show at some point. Skeet, you guys know who that is. GDZ, that is Zach. All kinds of great stuff here. Yeah, Levi is down here, as you can see by my cursor. Yes, you can see my cursor. Cool. So yeah, Levi's there. All kinds of great stuff. Of course, there's a robot and a luchador, so yeah. But moving on down here, obviously, everything here is done by Levi Combs. And we've got some great interior art and the cover by Ed Bickford, Adrian Landeros, Alla Fedorova, Chris Carmen, Lawrence Hernandez, Jay Shields, and Dan Smith. So a lot of the usual suspects, Murderer's Row here from Planet X. A lot of the usual people being congratulated here. And moving on, we'll take a look at some of the contents here. A lot of this has to do with assassins, secret societies, so adding some of that stuff, organizations and diabolical cults, fallen and forsaken gods, and the adventure this time around is Cursed Barrow of Whispering Skulls, which I believe Levi ran on stream a while back. I think it was Tony Plus One's stream that he was on, where he actually ran a version of this adventure. So yeah, that's a little bit of what we're going to get into here. So we'll go on down here. There's a bit here that I just scrolled past, so we're going to scroll back up. Talking about Frank and Pagan, a little bit of exposure that Levi had to zines very early on, and talking about how that has influenced the Phylactery both in this issue and in previous issues. Nice little article to read as you're opening this thing up. Of course, we all read the Phylactery for the articles. That is absolutely what we're doing here. And we start off here with the secret history of the grandfather of assassins. Nice little Adrian Landeros piece right here. And this is just kind of talking about like an assassin's guild that you can add in to your game. It's got some magic items that go with it, explanations of like who everyone is. So like down here, you've got some magic items that come through Red Shrike's armor, which is a deep, vibrant crimson, +2 leather armor. And it gives you the same qualities as a Cloak of Displacement. For anyone who is unfamiliar with that item, it is OP and great for any rogues that you have in the party, or really anyone who wants to avoid being hit. But it's a great item if you're a player. It's not that hard to work around if you're a GM. So again, in 5e, Cloak of Displacement's pretty cool. So it also gives you +2 saves against gaze attacks, spells, breath weapons, spitting, and so on that are aimed directly at the wearer. So basically, you'd be looking at a +2 to anything like from a Gorgon or a Beholder, because those are eye beams. You'd also be looking at basically +2 to dex saves. So, pretty cool thing here. And then there's Throat Seeker, which is a +1 dagger for regular folk, but if you're an assassin, so, a rogue with the assassin subclass, or, if you're playing something like DCC where there's not necessarily a set assassin path, you'd probably, be fluffing stuff. But if you can justify being an assassin, you have a +2 dagger that can be hurled 3 times the normal distance, and a natural 20 on the attack inflicts triple damage if it's being wielded by an assassin. Excuse me. And then, keeping with the theme of assassins here, we're looking at alternate death blow techniques for a high-level monk. So, as the text explains here, once you reach 13th level as a 5e monk, this would be a replacement for Quivering Palm. So you'd be looking at Iron Cobra's Exploding Venom Palm. And a lot of this is just flavor, but some of it is like actual. Some of it has actual mechanical differences here. So, Crippling Tiger's Guillotine Fist over here, number 8. With a single swipe of a ridged hand, the monk decapitates his opponent in the same manner as a Vorpal sword, and it points you to the 1E DMG. So basically, for anyone unfamiliar with the Vorpal sword, if you roll a 20, you decapitate the person, kill him instantly. So yeah, this is a cool addition because I've talked about this before. A lot of people have talked about this. A lot of digital ink has been spilled over the letdown that is the 5e monk. Unfortunately, with the way that 5e is designed and with the way that a lot of character classes end up, being in 5e, monks don't get a lot. They're the only class that's not front-loaded. And the reason why classes are front-loaded, of course, is statistically speaking, players are only going to be playing through, 10th level. Maybe, 15th. But as you get kind of, past 10th level, the chances of, more people playing kind of just, dwindle at that point. So any way to make a monk more appealing or give the monk more choices or let them do cooler things, because a monk is a cool type of character. The ranger's the same way, by the way, to throw shade at my favorite character class. It is a cool concept that mechanically does not pan out the way you would hope it would pan out, which I don't know what the answer is there. At some point there might be a video where I can dissect the ranger or dissect the monk and, change up what I would do, take some inspiration from other game systems and see where we would go from there. But what this does is really give you just a little bit more coolness, a little bit more variety to your monks, that your monk is doing something awesome. And beyond there, we get into some lists of gods, the fallen and the forsaken. So these are elder gods, fallen gods, basically evil gods that you can add into your campaign just to, add a little bit more flavor there. Again, some really cool Ed Bickford art here. That's a great piece, very evocative. All kinds of cool stuff. This is fantastic. This actually reminds me, and I can't see from the signature who did this. So if anyone in chat knows, please let me know. Or if anyone watching this after the fact knows whose artwork this is, let me know so that we can give proper credit. It reminds me a lot, though, of the... see if I can get this guy on camera here. The Hangin' Judge from Deadlands, one of my favorite Deadlands creatures. One of the coolest creatures in the Weird West. But it's that similar, shadowy face, noose around the neck, all kinds of cool stuff. Anyone who wears a noose, as a necktie, basically, is cool in my book. Nicodemus from the Dresden Files, Scarecrow from New Batman Adventures. That's a cool design choice, in my opinion. And this is the Strangler, or Hadark, the god of the nooses. A very interesting concept as well. But yeah, a lot of this stuff is great. And beyond here, we've got more secrets from the Liches Crypt, and these are magic items that you can throw into your campaign. There's Storm Bellow Horn, which allows you to blow into it once every day to summon an effect similar to control weather, but you can only call for thunderstorms, cloudy skies, or torrents of rain, akin to thunderstorms. lasting for 4 hours. And if you're a druid or a ranger of 5th level, you can call on a tornado to appear once a week. So if you are fighting a little girl from Kansas, this is a very effective weapon. And you've got Doom Kelp, which, let's see. It allows creatures who are not naturally able to do so to breathe underwater. And then once you try to leave the water, though, there can be some problems. Most notably, you will immediately begin to suffocate and will die in 1d4 rounds, plus your con score. So yeah, this is one of those monkey's paw type items. Hex Dust, you've got that as well. And then from there, you get into some secret organizations and diabolical cults. And so again, these are more kind of, interesting secret societies to throw at your party. If you need some kind of shadowy organization or mysterious cult or something like that. There's all kinds of lore and backstory and stuff like that here that Levi includes. And the reason why I'm not going into detail about all this is I want you guys to actually buy this book. I want you guys to give Levi your support. It's a great product. It's fantastic. Let's actually get this thing on camera here. Cover up my face for a little bit. You guys don't need to see my ugly mug all the time. But yeah, that's a lot of what you have here. Keep on going down the line. Some evil books and sorceress tomes. These are like evil spell books that give you access to certain spells or give you certain effects. Tableau of the Gibbering Maw. That is fantastic. Books with mouths are always fun. The Nine Despairs. Then you get into some hired adventurers or NPCs, people like that. So Nagabob, Veteran Adventurer. Got some art here. I believe this is Jay Shields' art. I could be mistaken, though. And then you also have St. Cernus the Fallen, who I believe graces the cover of Phylactery #1, if I am not mistaken. This is a fantastic Ed Bickford drawing as well. I know that Levi is a huge Warduke fan, and this is very, very evocative of Warduke. Who has a great design. So, this kind of thing is great. I really like this piece. This is a really cool piece right here. And it's St. Cernus is his name. And then down here, the Grand Heresy of Chernabog, priest liches driven by hate. And these are liches who were clerics of Chernabog. And down here you have like a sample of what kind of lich you could throw at players if you were doing like liches of Chernabog. Which, by the way, Chernabog is metal as hell. I love Chernabog. And Night on Bald Mountain is freaking fantastic. And then you get into the adventure for this particular issue of the Phylactery. The Cursed Barrow of Whispering Skulls. Your basic premise here is a farmer has discovered a whole bunch of floating skulls. So, you're dealing with, if not demi-liches, then something that is similar to demi-liches. You also get to deal with like yokels, which is a big thing. If you're familiar with an occurrence at Howling Crater, you know how freaky that stuff can be. But yeah, this is a pretty cool adventure, and you get as always with this, you get the cursed barrow, which is a mini dungeon. Levi loves to put the mini dungeons in here, so this is a cool one. You go into the barrow, and it goes down into this crypt where these demi liches are coming from, and you have the outline of what is actually inside the mini dungeon. And I'm not going to go over all of the details of the adventure again, just for spoiler reasons. And then you have Myths and Legends straight out of the Grindhouse, Kaltarag, the Graveyard of Dragons. And so this is these are legends about Kaltarag, which is, as the title here says, a graveyard of dragons. Some nice artwork here. And then you get into some monsters, like the Blight Hag. Hags are always interesting. I love a good hag. And this is because of The Witcher 3. It's 100% down to playing The Witcher 3 and encountering the hags there. But when you throw hags at your party, interesting things happen. A lot of people don't take them seriously. But these things will mess you up. A Kias polyp. That's freaky. And a murderous idol, which is a kind of an animated statue here, a construct, if you will. And then a witchmaw troll. Again, another freaky piece of art down here. And then you've got the stuff at the end here. Save versus disbelief. And we have an ad at the back here. This is the back cover that I'll show you guys. This is what Levi was talking about last time he was on the show, and I'll show you right side up here so that you guys can all see. Let's get this in frame, shall we? Make sure. Everything's reversed. I'm going the wrong way. Okay, there we go. King Tut's Rootin' Tootin' RPG Extravaganza and Western Wear. This is the October Kickstarter that Levi's going to be running. It is a fantastically weird-looking zine with some Weird West flavor to it. So this will be interesting. This is one I'm looking forward to discussing because it's going to be interesting to see how this scans with like what you find in Deadlands, or I can see like grafting this onto Boot Hill or Aces and Eights or something like that where there isn't a lot of weirdness. But Deadlands has its own specific flavor of weirdness. So seeing like how this parses with what's in Deadlands is going to be interesting. So I look forward to that. But yeah, just to sum up Phylactery number 3 here, as we're wrapping up our discussion of this, Phylactery number 3 is definitely a buy. Everything that Levi does is a buy. But it's a great resource for if you want to add some weirdness, especially if you're looking to add assassins, cults, or fallen gods. Those are the main things that are covered here. And I mean, look at that cover. That cover's fantastic. Can't go wrong with some Ed Bickford channeling John Byrne. So, with that in mind, let's go on over to the second topic that we're going to be discussing, which is Rocket to Russia by John Hambone McGuire. Okay, let me go up to the front cover here. So, like I said, this is Rocket to Russia. It is the first adventure from 321 Action, which is a game system that John and Gio Colazzo are working on together. This was another Kickstarter project. Again, I backed this one physically, so I've got the actual zine here. And this one actually came with some trading cards, which are interesting. Basically, these are like monster cards or character cards. This is the character sheet. It's a trading card that you like fill out yourself, which is a really cool thing. This is very steeped in 80s nostalgia and stuff like that. It's a really, really interesting concept. I like the fact that players would get their own trading cards. But the other ones are basically, like, this is a monster card, essentially. And then you've got other monster cards that have actual stats in the back. You've got character cards as well, because there are pre-gen characters. So, like Veronica Vivi Velasquez. And then you've got their stats in the back. That is upside down. There you go. We'll see Vivi's stats here in just a little bit. But yeah, there's pre-gen characters, and then there's also rules for rolling up your own character. And part of the interesting thing about Rocket to Russia, and why I'm going to spend more time on it than I did on Phylactery, is in this you're not just looking at an adventure, because Rocket to Russia is an adventure, but we also have basically a whole new game system here, and that's by design. And this is a game system that Hambone and Geo designed, very intentionally to be something that's easy to learn, easy to pick up. It's actually pretty intuitive once you get into it. So, all throughout here, just looking at the table of contents here, you've got the foreword, you've got safety tools, the X, all that stuff. I'm going to skip over that for now because I'm going to do... Next time I do a solo episode, I'm going to talk about my thoughts on RPG safety tools and all that. So I'm going to skip over that for now. I've given some of my thoughts on that in the past, but we're going to do a whole stream on that. A whole episode. So stay tuned. That'll probably be coming in November. Then you've got all the information for the game runner. Fill the plot holes in 2 sentences. We're definitely going to talk about that because that is interesting. Player generation, how the game runs, NPCs, monsters, creatures, all that stuff. And then we'll talk a little bit about the adventure itself as well. But again, I don't want to get into spoilers because I do want you to support Hambone's work here, and I don't want to spoil all the fun that's to be had in Rocket to Russia. So here's a little prelude. Actually written appropriately by Levi Combs. So, synergy. Levi is a very helpful, very awesome individual. And if you listen to Vintage RPG, you know that Levi very much kind of helped Hambone get through the publishing process and kind of set everything up here. He was very instrumental in making sure that this product actually got out there. So, again, if we can just all, praise Levi Combs here for a little bit, because he's a fantastic dude. And so this forward is by him. Fantastic. So, like I said, we're going to skip over this for just a second, and then we're going to get into here. The game master is called the game runner, which is a little bit disappointing. If I'm remembering correctly, I feel like Hambone was going to call him the director. So I don't know what happened to that. Maybe they just decided to go with GR. I don't know. I like the term director better, though, just because this is a very cinematic game. And the idea that you're a director. really kind of fits with the theme there. I don't know, maybe they decided it was a little too on the nose or too goofy. I don't know. Next time we bring Hambone on, we will talk about, what happened to that, if I just imagine that, on down the line. But the basic mechanic here, as we're getting down into the actual runner section, your basic mechanic is you're going to roll a d10, and you're trying to get below your stat to accomplish a task. So let me see if I can actually grab a d10 from here, because I like to roll the dice as I'm talking about the game. So I'm going to my stash of DCC dice, because those were the closest ones. Okay, I found a d10. All good. The DCC dice you have to be careful with, because some of them are odd, and they look like regular dice, but they're not. But I've got my d10 here. And appropriately, 3, 2, 1 action is mechanically relevant, because when it comes to tasks and accomplishing the tasks, as you can see on the screen here, 3, 2, and 1 are important numbers. So, for tasks that are monumentally difficult, you add 3 to the roll. For tasks of moderate difficulty, you add 2, and for regular tasks, you add 1. So, for example, let's do an action roll. Action is one of the stats that you'll have to roll, and the action is going to be sneaking through an overgrown jungle to get past some guards. So the game runner would add 3 to that because it would be difficult. There's lots of branches and everything. There's a ton of guards, so sneaking through might be a little bit difficult. Let's say I've got an action score of 7. I rolled I believe this is a 9. No, that's a 6. But with a 3, with a plus 3, it would be a 9, so I'd fail that check, and the guards would spot me. And as tasks get easier, or the more advantages you have, you can take that 3, 2, 1 and subtract it from the roll. So let's say I have some kind of invisibility generator. That would subtract 3 from the roll. So I rolled a 5, so total score of 2. So yeah, like a ghost shadow right through there. But yeah, this is basically the 3, 2, 1 mechanic here, an explanation here. And then fill in the plot holes with 2 sentences. This is an interesting mechanic. And what this does is allow your players to come up with crazy things that could happen in-game that would maybe be out of character. So the example that's given here is your gruff heavy gunner needs to delicately flambe a bananas Foster because he knows it's the enemy general's favorite food. And as the text explains here, it's creative problem solving. It's also that kind of weirdness, that kookiness that a lot of people expect from RPGs. I don't necessarily expect that from RPGs myself. That's a personal preference. But, that's the kind of gameplay that, Hambone wants to encourage with this game. How do you reconcile the fact that it's your heavy gunner who is flambeing the bananas Foster? They've got 2 sentences to fill the plot hole. And basically, again, the example that he gives here is... where is it? Oh, Grandma always had Julia Childs on in the kitchen. I miss my grandma. That's how the heavy gunner knows how to flambe a bananas Foster. And so it's just a brief explanation of how you're able to do something like this. It's a kind of variant on I Know a Guy. The I Know a Guy rule that Tim talked about on Knights and Nerds, where if you say I know a guy who can do this, that guy then exists, but getting him to actually do the thing might be a whole challenge on its own. It's a variation on that. It's not one-to-one that, but it's a variation. So, when it comes to turns, Hambone explains here, in most RPGs you can move and take an action, but that's all you can do, one move, one action. So in 3-2-1 action, it's not initiative, it's basically just decide in the moment who needs to go when, what everyone's going to do on their turn. Obviously, you can't shoot 6 guys, disarm a bomb, and then, give someone a shoulder rub all in one turn. That's the game master or the game runner's job to kind of police that sort of nonsense, where people can abuse a system like this. But for the most part, it's just, what needs to be done, who can do it, let's go from there. Work together. Again, the system is very much designed around light, fast-moving turns, really kind of very rules-light and very story-focused. Not so much simulation-focused, to the point where combat, you don't roll to hit, even. When you attack, you hit, and then you roll damage. And your damage is a modifier to a D10 roll. So the handgun, the Beretta M9 in this particular game, has a damage modifier of -3. So I'm going to shoot someone with my Beretta, and I rolled an 8, so I deal 5 damage. And that damage goes against luck points. Everyone gets a base of 20 plus 1d10, so, for example, I would have 25 luck points. And luck points are not just your hit points, which is a cool mechanic. The idea that once your luck runs out, you're dead. That's mentioned directly here in the text. That is interesting. But they're also a resource that you can use for other things. You can use them to add or subtract from a roll. You can use them to find more ammo. You can use luck points in any way you want, but you only have a certain number per session. You get some more at the end of a session. But the idea is that they're a resource, to be used to enhance gameplay, but also they're what keeps you alive. So if you're a little too liberal with how you're using your luck points, a bullet could end up killing you. It's a really interesting mechanic, and I really like it. I like it a lot. It really solves the problem of what are hit points. Because for a lot of people, hit points are like how much damage you can take. But the idea that you're hitting someone with a sword, like you're cutting someone with a sword 6 times to kill them, is kind of stupid when you think about it logically. So what are hit points? Hit points in a lot of games represent the, ability of someone to evade an attack, parrying, dodging, maybe a couple nicks and cuts here. I like that this game kind of does away with hit points as a whole and just says, these are luck points. This is your luck that you're using up. So if you're using all your luck here, you might not have enough when a situation comes up when you're in combat, and then, guess what? There's a bullet with your name on it. When your luck point's at 0, you die. And you can pretty much enter combat whenever you want with a new character. The idea is, basically you've got a couple sentences to explain where that came from. In the context of this adventure, let's say one of the soldiers that's entering this island, because this whole thing takes place on a mysterious island. Another soldier runs through the brush, enters the fray, and is like, "I was with one of the other teams sent to stop this." That's where a new character could come from. New characters can come from anywhere. It's a game at the end of the day, which is really the almost the motto of this. It's a game at the end of the day. So just repeat to yourself, it's just a game. I should really just relax. To paraphrase. And again, luck points here are a reward. You can do them. You can give them out whenever people are role playing well. There's also awards that you can give here: best comedy, best action sequence. I don't know how I feel about this. I'm not wild about that, and I know a lot of this is like you want to reward organic moments that pop up. Like when Cheyenne gave me a Benny for owning up to the fact that I did shoot the guy in Hellgate. Bennies are the same way in Deadlands and Savage Worlds. You use them as a reward for players for doing things well. But if this becomes like codified, like we're going to give out these rewards at the end of every session, I think you're going to end up with a lot of players being goofballs just to try to get best comedy, and it's going to end up being a little bit counterproductive. Just my thoughts. But, if you want to do it this way, you can. Again, all of this is optional. This is just these are guidelines for giving out luck points. So you could do it this way or you could not do it this way. It's really up to you. And then movement, every character can move roughly 40 feet per turn. But what this, gets into is the equipment that you're carrying determines how far you can move. Just to allow, basically melee characters to be as effective in combat as ranged characters. So that, they can move and attack on the same turn. Again, it's all about, like he says here, story over physics. Then we get into some player stuff here. These are the 6 stats that you're dealing with. So the physical and mental stats that you have in this game are action, brains, brawn, and charm. So action is the stat you're going to be relying on the most. It's anything physical, anything movement-based. Or anything movement-based, really, is what you're dealing with there, because some of the strength-based stuff is covered under brawn. Brains, book smarts, street smarts, all that stuff. Brawn, like I said, physical stuff, lifting heavy things, opening a pickle jar, carrying your friend off the battlefield. And then charm, you guys know what that one is. And then for survival stats, cool is, staying frosty in combat, guts, intestinal fortitude, and endurance. I am ashamed of my fellow wrestling fan, John McGuire, for not putting testicular fortitude instead of intestinal fortitude. I understand what he's going for here, wanting to be gender neutral, but come on. Throw in your JR reference here, man. Anyway. I'm not actually mad about that. And the idea here is after you fail 3 gut checks, all your stats are lowered by 1. After a 4th one, you die. And you can reverse them with luck points or with battlefield medicine. Then we get into pre-gens here. I'm just going to gloss over them. These are all your, 80s action movie archetypes, basically. Daniela Johansson. I do want to stop on this one because Daniela Johansson is not the name of someone from Clarksville, Tennessee. As someone who lives in Nashville, that's not a Clarksville name. Just throwing that out there. But, again, nitpicks here. Tiberius Redshirt Kirkman is hilarious. I love this. His special ability is he can recall from memory every card released from the 1991 Topps Desert Storm trading card set, as well as their stats from front to back. I didn't even know they made that, but they did. Then from here we get into rolling a character. Basically, you roll 60-10, not necessarily in order, but then you assign them to the stats you want them to correspond with. Stats can't be lower than 2, and they can't be higher than 9, because they want a chance of absolute success or absolute failure. So if your stat was a 10, you couldn't roll above a 10 with a d10. If your stat was a 1, you couldn't roll lower than a 1. Under most circumstances. Excuse me. And then there's also a standard array option if you're afraid of low stats. Then you get to choose a background. There's some here. I guess you could come up with one as well. Adds a +1 to a stat, and then the game runner will apply a -1 to another stat. But not the same stat that they took the +1 in. So basically, the example here, like a doctor would have a +1 to brains, maybe a -1 to charm, though. So, things like that. Lawyer, I'd actually had that be a +1 to charm, and then a -1 to brawn, but, again, nitpicks. And then backstory in 3 sentences. This is interesting. I, in the past and the present, have been guilty of overdoing my character's backstory, because I love coming up with stuff like that. I came at role-playing through theater, through acting. I like thinking about who my character is. You can see a lot of that in Hellgate with the way that I play Clayton. I've thought a lot about who Clayton is, what Clayton feels in a given moment. I wrote a way too long backstory for him. But this basically takes away the overlong backstory and the pressure of creating an overlong backstory. You get 3 sentences for your character backstory. Sentence 1 is based on their role. Sentence 2 is their motivation, and 3 is what brought them on the adventure. So, Daniela Johansson, the dubious resident of Clarksville, Tennessee. She is the squad's communications expert. She speaks 7 languages, and she joined up with the military to see the world, experience new cultures, and learn their languages. That is her backstory. That's who she is. And then in the inventory, you get 4 items, or 4 item slots, because some of the heavier weapons do take up multiple slots. So grenade launcher takes up 2 item slots, on down the line. Ammunition does not take up a weapon slot, because it goes with the weapon. And then we get into some of the weapons that we have for this particular adventure. Brass knuckles, combat knife. So the damage modifier here, that's how much you subtract from your damage roll. So let's say Hambone gives the example of the Macho Man elbow drop off a pile of crates. So let's say you do that. I rolled a 7. So I'd be dealing 1 damage with my elbow drop. High risk, low reward. as all top rope maneuvers are. But yeah, brass knuckles, combat knife, machete, samurai sword. I love that if you reduce target to half of their luck points, you dismember them. And if you reduce them to 0, you decapitate them. That's great. Then you get into some great 80s action movie weapons like the Beretta M9, the underslung shotgun, the M4 compound bow, if you really want to be Rambo, flamethrower, grenade launcher, hand grenade, sniper rifle, and then some armor. And armor just adds luck points. Some of these armors are hilarious. You have your standard flak jacket, of course. But you also have a Fallen Friends dog tags, which gives you 2 luck points. Uncle Jack's Lucky Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card. I love that. Picture of your sweetheart back home feels like it should deduct luck points. Because usually when you've got someone to go home to in an action movie, you're going to die. It's like being a couple days away from retirement. But I understand, again, the motivation to stay alive is there. And then one other thing I want to talk about here. A lot of the art here is fantastic, but I do have to point this out, though. That's not a good-looking K-bar. It looks like a pirate's cutlass. I'm sorry. That bothered me. That bothered me a lot, actually. And samurai sword, again, the hilt is not curved that way. But these are nitpicks. Just ignore me. I'm being a goofus here. And then rolling for ammo. Basically, after a combat encounter, to get more ammo, you have to roll for it. And each weapon has a penalty to your roll to see how much ammo you recover. So if you're trying to get arrows back from firing your compound bow, I drop my dice. Reroll. It was cocked. Reroll again. A 2. A 2 after all that nonsense. And it's a -4 to recovering ammunition, so I don't find anything. And then we get into some monsters here. The Amphicura are kind of the main monster here. They're fish people, essentially. The Jade Sniper is the main antagonist here. He's the guy that you're sent after. And then the Night Swimmer is a vampiric squid, which is freaky as hell. And there's a battle-damaged version of it for when you encounter it after certain events. And it has spawn. Yippee. And then there's an airplane that you fight as well. Because of course there is. And you have a map of the island here. And then you get into the main adventure. You are entering the island from a submarine. And this gives a little bit of guidance on how to introduce players to each other, because it's best if a couple of your players already know each other, or a couple of your player characters know each other already. And it gives the example of the warriors and how it introduces the characters in the beginning through the dialogue, setting up the world, all that stuff. Another good example would be the helicopter. This is after the initial like masculine handshake and stuff from Predator, but the helicopter ride in where Long Tall Sally is playing, and you kind of get introduced to the grunts. This is basically telling you how to go through that scene. And you basically just like pick two random players and be like, you guys know each other from somewhere. And then you get into some of the introduction to the adventure. And this is really the only major criticism I have of the adventure. You're being sent to... Your whole kind of background here is your special forces being sent to this mysterious island to take down the Jade Sniper, who's an ex-Spetsnaz sniper. And he is causing trouble on Point Nemo, and you just need to take him down. The problem that I have here is immediately you are introducing the players to this concept of the Amphicura. These should be treated like the Predators, or the Xenomorphs. This situation in the action movies that this game is based on is always a mystery. It's always something that the party is not expecting. I don't know if Hambone just wanted to be different here or what the deal is, but I would not introduce these things here. Literally, like, the commanding officer gives you like pictures of them and says, here, these things are on the island too. This should be something that the players stumble upon. They're like, why send 5 special forces guys to take out 1 sniper? What's really going on here? Because that's always in the background of these things too. And then you get on the island and, fish monsters. Yeah. That's the way I'd go for it. And if I were running this, that's how I would run it. But again, very minor nitpick. So, the whole thing is you've got 12 hours to get onto this irradiated island, Point Nemo, take out the Jade Sniper, and get to the extraction point. That's where the Sea Wolf, which is the submarine you're coming in on, is, and you have to do all that in 12 hours. So there's a ticking clock as well. And that is, that's where I'm going to leave it, because the rest of this, I don't want to give away much about the adventure itself. But it's very reminiscent of something like Predator, something like Aliens, any of those movies that the role-playing game Stay Frosty is based on. There's an OSR role-playing game called Stay Frosty, where the whole thing is your grunts kind of fighting an unknown, way more powerful than you entity. It sounds really cool. I have not read it or played it, but it sounds really cool. But yeah, that is Rocket to Russia. The rest of this is the adventure itself. So closing thoughts here on Rocket to Russia. It's a very good package. This gives you all you need to really play in 3-2-1 action. And 3-2-1 action is very much going to be like a setting agnostic game system. It's clearly designed to be something that you can like pick up and port to other settings. Hambone said as much in talking about it on Vintage RPG. The point of this game is to be able to, run a quick, exciting, fun, one-off or, 5-off game with light rules so that you can get people into role-playing. And the system does that beautifully. This is a really simple, really intuitive game design that allows players to use their brains, use their creative thinking, really kind of do that whole thing I've talked about with OSR design, where it's not the rules in the sheet, it's the rules of the sheet in your brain. What can you come up with? What creative solutions do you have to the problems? That's what I really like about Rocket to Russia. It really seems to encourage that style of play. And I'm excited to see what else Hambone puts out with 3-2-1 action. Just so we can see, like more of this. He said that there's a horror game coming. There's a Western game coming. Probably fantasy as well. He's talked about a superhero game as well. I don't know when all this is coming or, like formally what it's going to look like. I do know that the next thing he's putting out is Point Nemo. So basically he's going to take this island, flesh it out a little bit more, and give a little bit more substance to it. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. But all in all, Rocket to Russia is a fantastic product. Definitely recommend. Definitely like it. Cool game. Lots of fun stuff. Lots of great flavor to it. So that's going to do it for today. Let me go back to me solo. And we'll kind of close things out here. Cool. So yeah, that is Rocket to Russia and Phylactery 3. Like I said, both of these strongest possible recommendation. I love these guys. I love these games. So yeah, definitely buy. Definitely buy. These are awesome products. And yeah, that's really where we're going to leave it for tonight. I know, a couple short episodes, one right after the other, but, I don't want to overstay my welcome here. So that's where we're going to leave it tonight. Just to let you guys know what's coming up here. Next week, we're going to be doing another session of Night Haven. So, Prax and Rez and John and Joe Page will be back. We'll be back in the world of Night Haven. And then the week after that, I'm going to be doing a couple episodes that kind of fit together. I'm going to go on the Dungeon Master's Toolkit and talk with the host of that show. And then they're going to come on here. And, I'm excited to check out Dungeon Master's Toolkit. It's something brand new that I just discovered. I just kind of interacted with the host there on Twitter. So we'll kind of, we'll see what shakes out there. I'm excited to, make new friends and check out what's going on there. And then obviously, for anyone who's looking to game at conventions, I'm going to be at Gamehole Con October 21st through the 23rd. I'll be leaving on the 24th. So I won't be there on Sunday, but the 21st through the 23rd of October, I'll be in Madison, Wisconsin for Gamehole Con. I'm super excited for that. That's going to be a ton of fun. I'll be running Night Haven. I believe there's still openings in my Friday morning game. It's 10 o'clock, which I know is early for some people, but, if you want to play Night Haven, I've got openings in that game. Definitely come check it out. It'll be a ton of fun. But until then, guys, whether you rolled a 1 or a 20, I am so glad that you rolled your bones with me, Ryan Howard, and I'll see you next week for more Night Haven.